Fantasy fans rejoice. HLTV Fantasy Focus is back with episode 2 as we'll be taking a look at the IEM Cologne Play-In around the corner and unpacking what's gone down here at Blast so far. So it seems Vitality, Heroic, and Liquid are off to a strong start, getting some early padding points in, and they're not the only hot starts. No, in the celebrity leaderboard, we've got a few people already getting their groove on, some usual suspects, but also a couple of standouts as well. It doesn't look like there's any 1% finishers on the line, but here are the 5 players who have stepped forward in the opening bout. We've got Lucy, we've got P2, Scrawny, and Harry and Machine. Yeah, that's right. All 5 of those people floating above or around 10% at the moment. Where they'll end up and finish exactly, the jury's still out. We'll have to keep a close eye on them. And there could also be some sleeper picks that just haven't talked about their success yet. But these are 5 individuals that'll be starting their season strong. I wanted to take this chance to actually check in with another set of stars. Okay? There's a few names that you may know because of the fact that these are the top 3 regular users from our previous season. I'm talking about a Sensei, Pot War, and Massacre. Now, finishing top 3 last season means all 3 of these people were paid cash, cold hard cash for their fantasy experience. And I thought it would be cool to check in to see how they've started this fall season in contrast to the spring season that each of them can say they dominated. So first, we've got a Sensei. Man sitting with the simple bit duo, Magisk, Apex, and Hunter. Floating around 25% at the moment. I think the double Navi pick here, he was hoping was going to go a little bit better than it did, but at the very least, that Magisk pop-off to start off the Blast groups, that overpass B bomb site, racket in points for anybody who played Magisk. So that's how the number 1 finish of the last season has begun here at Blast. We've got Pot War, who also came through with a slightly different strategy. I've got to say, 5 separate players from 5 separate teams. That's his approach to the Blast groups, including Flamesy, Cadian, Simple, Twists, and Hampus. And of course, trying to tap into that very, very cheap price tag, $153,000 from Hampus, so incredibly low. It afforded him all of these other stars, but I think unfortunately for him, it's the Simple and Twists letdown that keeps him around 20% at the moment. Still ahead of a Sensei, but not really where he'd want to be. And then, of course, finishing 3rd last season, Massacre. Now this one's strong. That double tap of Magisk and Flamesy. That is the golden ticket, it seems, with the first event of the season. Add in Cadian, Simple, and Hampus. Another abuser of the Hampus price tag. If you know, you know. Of course, Simple coming through in all 3 of these guys' drafts, so looking like our previous champions were trying to take advantage of Simple's $210,000 price tag. Didn't really pay off the way they'd hope, although there are still games to be played, so there's definitely moves to be made. But within the previous top 3, it's Massacre, who's sitting at 7% at the moment and looking for that top 5 finish. Now, these are individuals who can be confident in fantasy, proven to be successful in previous seasons. Somebody who should not be confident is Jacob Pimp Vinicky. Okay, I showed up in Copenhagen thinking I was going to have a nice, comfortable start to the season. We were going to get into the groove, and everybody was here to have a good time. I was thinking a month off would do everybody great, but Pimp has been talking shit. Ever since I got here, Jacob's just been on my back, talking smack about fantasy and whatnot, and so him and I decided to up the ante, to raise the stakes, and hopefully stir up some drama as this season goes on. So check out what him and I have brewed. Well, folks, it's a new season of Counter-Strike, and that means that there's a new bet between Pimp and I, all right? He's taken 500 euros from me already this week, but he has gone ahead and graciously given me an easy bet to win. He thinks he can do better than me this season when it comes to HLTV Fantasy. Whichever of us places higher than the other wins 250 euros. Count it out, throw it down. Good luck, bro. You'll need it. So it turns out Pimp will put his money where his mouth is. Yes, I'm already at a deficit, But that was last season, and this season I'm feeling confident. Feels like he's come into my territory. Pimp or Scrawny, pick a side. You can only be one of our friends and the other, mortal enemies. So with Blast underway and with Blast going the way it is, let's take a second and focus in on what's about to come. We've got the Cologne Play-In. Now, the Cologne Play-In is a 3-day event with opening best of ones, which are now only worth 50% of the points that they were previously. This is one of the significant changes that HLTV has brought forward with Fantasy this season, and so keep that in mind. Your opening best of ones no longer nearly as important as the best of threes that will come after. Of course, the 4 teams who will win their first best of 3 match after their best of 1 are also going to secure a single round of padding points. Those are the only padding points available for this event. If you lose your opening best of 1 at the play-in, you will then need to play 2 best of 3s facing elimination each time in order to qualify for Cologne, where all the best teams in the world are awaiting their final competitors. I really suggest that you guys pay attention to your opening matches here, as drafting players who will fail to qualify could end up being a tragic mistake that'll cost you what is a very short event, but with very high stakes. Just as many fantasy points as this 2-week slog we've had in Copenhagen with only 3 days in Cologne. Best of ones in the mix. I mean, a fatal mistake here from any of these teams. Landmines around every corner. You can't afford to lose those opening matches, or else it's elimination every step of the way. Focusing in on some individuals for the draft. Now, again, our 3 categories here on Fantasy Focus are the big baller, the safe bet, and the eco pick. And when we look at big baller, last week we had ZywOo. Easy. I mean, he's ZywOo after all. But I find that with the teams who have already qualified for the main event, the big baller category for the stand-in or play-in, it's not really overflowing with options. When I think big baller in this case, I feel like the options are Frozen, Quesarado, Nafly, or the Astralis duo of BlameF and Device. With Mouse's matches looking a lot easier than the others, I think Frozen's actually the best choice for the big baller category. If you're looking to splash cash, if that's your style, you want that big gold price tag, then I say take a look at Frozen. Frozen's 2023 stats are comparable to Quesarado. That's a top 5 rifler in the world who have the chance to pad those stats at the America's RMR heading into the Blast Paris Major. If you're looking for a big baller, I think Frozen's your best choice. When it comes to the safe bet, I think we should be looking in on Mouse or FURIA. For our first episode, I said heroic because they're guaranteed into playoffs. We're just looking for teams that are going to qualify to the main event, and it would feel so wrong for Mouse or FURIA to miss out on this chance. Even though both teams are coming in with roster changes, which could definitely affect the stability and undermine the safety of this bet, I feel like they have the clearest paths to qualification. Mouse will be calling on Jimpat to transition his success to a LAN environment and hoping that Shuhei can weaponize Torzy better than Dexter ever could. And that's something I have faith in. If you saw how Shuhei utilized Torzy back in the Mouse NXT days in the Academy League, I just have more faith in Shuhei's ability to activate Torzy and also play well himself. Then, of course, we look over towards FURIA. If you want to go down the Brazilian road, well, pound for pound, the 2 new additions are upgrades. Fallen and Cello are better than Safe and Drop. I feel very comfortable making that claim. The question really boils down to what style of Counter-Strike are FURIA going to be utilizing? Will Fallen be taking the reins away from Art, and does that make things awkward? There's still questions because of these new rosters and the fact that we didn't get to see them at the first event of the season, but they do still feel safe to me. Monty, though, I want to call out Monty as potentially being that landmine FURIA could step in. Assuming FURIA beat Greyhound in their best of 1, I expect Monty to be their best of 3 opponent, and even though Monty have lost Boros, we're still talking about Sumdai Young, Waro 2K, and a step up in Demka as of late. So that trio could definitely throw something weird at FURIA. You know, this is a major top 8 team at the end of the day, and FURIA are coming in with a new roster. Additionally, when we look at FURIA, the price tags on the 2 incoming Imperial players are very, very comfortable. 198,000 for Fallen, 200K for Cello. You know, for 2 players who you feel like will make the main event, that's fair. Consider it. And lastly, we've got the eco pick. Now the rules for the eco pick I set out as a player being under $190,000. We're looking at the 180s to fill this role, to save you a little money, to maybe get that big baller. It's up to you. But for me, I've gone with 3 eco players that I want to highlight here. Number 1 is Roy. Roy comes in at $185,000, but Roy also comes in a year incomparable to his previous. 2022, Roy finished with a 1.14 rating, and right now he's barely above 1.0. The first half of this year wasn't that great for Roy, but I do think that of the 3 players I'm gonna list, he has the highest ceiling. After that, it's Hampus. Now, we mostly all picked Hampus here for the Blast groups because of that $153,000 price tag. Now he's already been cranked up to 186, a $33,000 increase in under 2 weeks, and this makes more sense as to where you'd want to place Hampus. Now, I still think Hampus should be considered because the Ninjas in Pajamas have a decent opening game, they've got a chance to beat Maus in my mind, and Hampus here has been keeping his head afloat. There have been no massive blowouts in terms of his Blast performance, and so this is still a reasonable price tag for him, somebody to definitely consider if you're looking to save a bit of cash. Lastly, as an eco pick, I want to shout out Floppy, okay? Complexity have come through with Elige, and with Elige's heavy-handed impact in Complexity's endeavors at Blast, barring that Vitality blowout, okay? If there's another blowout like that, Complexity will cost you, and the Floppy pick is off the table. But there are no teams like Vitality at this play-in. And for that reason, I feel like Complexity and Floppy should definitely be considered. Floppy, with Elige, seems to be having an uptick in form. It's a small sample size, it's still risky business, and I've got that NA bias. But give Floppy a consideration if you'd like. And now I'm gonna bend the rules, okay? Outside of the eco pick, by a mere $2,000, I wanna say Kylar, all right? 9 feel to me like the dark horse of this play-in. When you look back on 2022, there was a substantial period of time where 9 were genuine contenders for top 10 throughout the year. And yes, when they got to the major, it feels like they peaked too soon. They weren't able to transition all of their success into the IEM Rio event, nor the Blast Paris major. But I feel like writing off 9 would be a disservice to yourself. And Kylar is an individual who's just kind of keeping up the floorboards of the 9-pack. You know, right now Hades isn't having the best start to the year, but at least 9 have had some officials coming into Cologne. If you're not at Blast, you're probably not playing, but there's an exception in 9. And I think for that reason, if you've got just a few $1,000s sticking around and you have one of these other players already in your draft, maybe give Kylar consideration. Thank you guys for tuning into HLTV Fantasy Focus. Of course, I'll be bringing you videos for every step of Cologne. We've got 3 on the line. It's going to be a very tight turnaround between the play-in and the actual group stage. Don't forget about that. Less than 24 hours in order to make that draft for the main event. So the moment it opens, start eyeing up who you want to draft, get an early look, and get those juices flowing as fast as you can, because you're going to have to be quick to get success at IEM Cologne.